Good morning, everyone, and welcome back for another stream. It is Monday morning, and it is almost 20 past 10. Yeah, I know, I'm surprised too. So, I had this, after last week, I had this whole plan where I was going to take it easy. I was going to work to like the rhythm that I wanted to and be really careful to listen to my body. I zoned out a bit of the weekend playing video games, but I think I kind of need that as well, that balance. I woke up this morning and was like, right, I want to go study now. So I'm here and we're going to work out what I'm doing this week. We have all of the like to-do lists that I made last week. And I know that I set the priority to finish the notes from my PhD notebook first. So what I think I will probably do is do those notes. So type those notes up, then all of my PhD notes will be typed up and I'll just have my medical humanities and illness and disability course notes left to do, which will take a lot longer because that's like 100 and something pages of notes, but very useful and I will use them in the future, so worth doing. But I think, yeah, the idea of getting it all done before term started, which is in a week. Term starts in a week. I get to start my PhD soon. Yeah, the idea of doing all of that before term started, in the middle of having constant pain flares. So I'm in constant pain, but then I've basically been having one flare a week. So about half of the time I've been unable to do any of this. So realistically, it was never going to happen. But I can work through it slowly this way, and it gives me something to do when I want to be productive, but like I might be having brain fog or I don't know what to do with myself, that sort of thing. So should all be fine. It should be fine. But so I don't have a lot to catch up on because, as said, I spent most of the weekend playing Minecraft and World of Warcraft. I'm really pleased with my beach house in Minecraft though. But I have done a lot of thinking because I do tend to do that, unfortunately. It's part of the problem really, is that I think a lot. And I was thinking, because I basically watch Twitch constantly. I was thinking about the fact that all of the streamers I watch, I love. Hi, Oceanic. I love these streamers because they're really good at being themselves, and I am constantly second guessing myself when I'm on stream and like trying to, I don't know, perform a stream persona, which obviously you do to an extent because we all do that because we context switch and, you know, we don't behave the same in front of every person. I once said fuck in front of my grandparents, and my brothers, when we left the house, were like, oh my god, do you realise you dropped an F-bomb? So normally I'm quite good at context switching, but apparently not all the time. I've lost what the point of that was. The point of that was that I'm going to try and be a bit more relaxed and more myself, because that's kind of the idea, because the whole idea is to present what it's like for me doing a PhD, which means being me. Yeah, exactly. And I wish it was that simple, but sadly, yeah, it's one of those things where like, it sounds so simple and then it's really difficult. In the same way that the target of listening to my body, I found super hard because a lot of the time so I've said before that I think my worst mental illness symptom is doubt. Whether that's self-doubt or doubt of the reality around me or doubt of other people, that sort of thing. But I constantly experience a symptom, like especially symptoms from my fibromyalgia, Like I'll be in some pain, and then my brain weasels will be like, but are you sure you're in pain? And so that's really horrible. But then some of the time also, I think I then worry. So I wanted for years, this is going to sound really weird, I don't really know how to put this, so I'm just going to go for it. For years, when I was like really seriously ill with my mental illness, I wished I had a physical illness, because I wanted something that I could point to that was real and obvious. And it feels like the universe's karma has gone, you know what, sure, have a physical disability. It's an invisible one. Because now I'm just walking around going, what if people think I'm not disabled because some days I can walk and some days I can't, and sometimes I wake up and I can walk and then half an hour later I can't. And I find that really hard. I find it really hard to embrace moments that I'm feeling better. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing that gets me is I literally study this. I know all of the logic and the theory about invisible disabilities, and I can't apply it to myself. I still catch myself being like, well, my legs are feeling better, but I'm going to keep using my stick anyway, just so that I don't look ridiculous. And I'm like, not. So yeah, it's something that is pervasive and annoying me in every aspect. I have spinal stenosis, achondroplasia, I think that's it, and mental health struggles. Yeah, so I get you. I only got diagnosed with. Oh, okay, thank you. I was like, I did recognise the term, but I couldn't recall what it was. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I've had chronic pain for 10 years, and I got my diagnosis this year. So it's really weird to finally like have a name for it, and it sort of helped a bit, but then it hasn't helped as much as I wanted it to, because whilst I can explain it to other people, I'm much more confident explaining my chronic pain to other people now and why it's happening and why it's serious, but it still hasn't like internalized. It hasn't gone back in on me, so we'll see. We'll get there. But yeah, so I think today, in fact, let me just show you. How has my day been? I've only been up for an hour. But actually it's quite good thus far. I have woken up with not that much pain, which is rare, because for me the pain is normally worst first thing in the morning and then like as the day goes on later. But I've really woken up like here and ready to do things. Yeah, I mean I was still awake at 1 a.m. I had trouble. I wasn't too bad once I got to sleep, but I had a lot of trouble getting to sleep, which I do a lot of the time. But yeah, I slept okay once I got to sleep, which is nice, because one of the symptoms I get is that my sleep often isn't very restful. Like I can sleep through the night and I can get a sufficient amount of sleep, but it won't refresh my body in the way it needs to. Am I a deep or light sleeper? I think I'm both, depending on what's going on. I know that I think I'm naturally a deep sleeper, but then if I'm having insomnia, I will tend to sleep more lightly. I don't believe I have sleep apnea, but I've not been tested for it. One of the things I want to do once it's possible, so I'm in the UK, so we're on full national lockdown right now because our government are stupid and made a load of really unclear COVID regulations, so people still had contact with each other and then our cases rose again. When in the distant future, when that is no longer a thing, I want to go and have a sleep study done, because I know that that's really good for a good thing to get done for fibro, to check if you have things like sleep apnea or anything else that's affecting your sleep, because getting enough sleep and getting the correct quality of sleep is also really important for managing pain levels. So it's definitely something I want to do. As far as I know, but it's very possible that I do. I know a lot of people that do. I have some friends that have to sort of sleep with full machines and stuff. So yeah, who knows? I'll find out in an unknown quantity of time. But yeah, so let me put us on. Do CPAP machine. Yeah, that's. I think that's the kind of. It's just like a breathing apparatus. So yeah, so my plan, I think, is I'm just going to go one thing at a time and see how I'm doing. Because I think my tendency can be to go, I'm feeling good, let's do everything. And then I do everything and then I have a flare again. So I think we'll get these notes done first, which is, click on it so you can see my cursor. It's the 2 here in the doing column, which is the rest of this notebook. The one thing I just need to make sure of is that, yeah, everything in moderation, exactly. I just need to skim my notes for The Body Keeps the Score, because The Body Keeps the Score is an absolutely amazing book. But it's something I'm cautious about recommending to people, because it's a book about trauma and recovery from trauma and how we treat trauma. And it is explicit in its description of traumatic events, not gratuitously at all. It's very careful in how it describes traumatic events, but it doesn't hold back on them, and it's not gentle. It gives them the severity they deserve, effectively. But that does mean that some of my notes might be things I don't want to put on screen. So I'm just going to have a quick skim of those just to make sure. I have marked us as an adult channel, because I can't study mental health without needing to talk about things like self-harm and suicide, and I don't. I want to be very careful as I'm going through about making sure that yeah, exactly, it's heavy stuff, and I want to be able to say, hey, we're going to talk about this for a bit. If you need, I need a better system, because currently my system for saying, hey, it's safe to come back is to give a thumbs up, but obviously that doesn't work for everyone, especially if you're relying on the audio rather than the video for whatever reason. Then you're not going to be able to see me being like, hey, it's fine, and you will have muted so as to not hear it's complicated, and I don't know what the best thing to do is. Maybe something in chat would be helpful. I think these look mostly okay. Yeah, because I think mostly when there are case studies, what I have written is there's this case study that's good. I haven't generally written down the details of that case study. And thank you. This is why you can't quite tell on the camera, but it's like this lovely purpley blue. It's my favourite colour. Both in general and of nail polish though. Yeah, I think this is all okay. So I think I'll be able to type those up. You thought it was black. Yeah, so that's a bit better. The green screen is obliterating my fingers, but you can sort of see that lovely, like, it's almost like slate blue that someone's then put purple in. It's really nice. Yeah, so I'll start off by doing this, I think. As it will also wake me up slowly. I haven't actually opened Zotero. Oh, and I'm going to need the book as well. What am I putting this on? Putting this under PhD. I hate it when books list multiple locations and you have to decide which one you're listing. This is a 2015 edition. It just says Great Britain. Okay, I'm also just going to turn the music down a bit because it's super loud for me. Yeah, of course you can. It's lovely to meet you too. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me, and I hope you managed to get some sleep at some point. There we are. You're welcome. I know sleep struggles very, very well. Sleep and I don't have a good relationship. I think I also need to change another setting in something else because so I have my speech fed back into my ears. I think it's on too loud because I can hear every rumble and they're not coming through to you at all because it's filtered by that point. But here we are. There's my direct monitoring. And I want to turn that down a bit. Oh no, I want more PC than microphone. I want it that way. That's better. Leave that open though in case I need to change it again. I've done the thing again where I've gotten really pale as well. What is going on with my camera today? I was trying to sort this out before the stream, the fact that I look like a vampire. I promise I'm not actually this colour. I can try. turning down that light slightly. There we go, that helped a bit. Yeah, I've got this problem in my notes where I keep writing MH for both mental. Firstly, I'm trying to say mental illness rather than mental health because I think it's important to differentiate between the two, because mental health is something that everyone has and mental illness is not something that everyone has. So I want to be careful about differentiating between the two, but also I use MH for medical humanities when I'm writing, so I need to make sure that I'm not using the same initials for the same for different things, because that will just get confusing. No. My hands are not quite doing what I'm asking them to today. Apparently I've written a note to myself to look up. Oh gosh, what book was it? I took it out of the library, which means... I do indeed have an accent. I've got news, which is that everyone has one. Hellos. I'm gonna pronounce your name wrong. Is it Sahinya or yeah, I want my library account statements so that I can then look up Sahi. Okay, that's much easier. Yeah, I read this book. It would have been 2019. It was over Christmas, and that's November. Is it The Story of Pain? It might be The Story of Pain. No. I think it's a bright red screen. It is. Cool. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that as a separate book, Merrily Strong. I've also noticed that the music has started playing things with vocals, which I don't want. I'm just going to change genre, and then we should be... Oh, actually, I can just filter it, can't I? I've got new music. I'm using Epidemic Sound. So I have to go to just wanting instrumental. And then I can go back to peaceful and relaxing. So we can have peaceful and relaxing instrumental. This is actually the song that we just had on, but it's the instrumental version. Okay, cool. So I've got that book in there now. And also, just as a reminder, if you've not been here before, sometimes in this program it will look like I'm doing weird things. It's because you don't see drop-down menus. I'm in a drop-down menu now with my cursor, but it doesn't capture them. So if you see me doing something and it makes no sense whatsoever, that's probably why. Where did I get up to? I got up to look up name. This is now loud. Did it put the volume back up? I think it might have done. That's better. Page 92. What are you doing, computer? Oh, I think it was backing up. No, that's... So something I'm also trying to do as I'm going through my notes is I'm trying to make sure that any things I've written, anything that's like a reference that I've put in my notes that I want to look up, that I'm then putting that in my to read list. You want to have an accent like mine? Anyone can do it. You just have to practice. YouTube has some fantastic accent instruction videos. Actually, I've used them for role playing before. Oh, I think that would be a good one to read. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that into Notion. No. It is in the university library, although it's not digital, so I wouldn't be able to get hold of it right now. But that's on my list now. Oh, you cannot mention or maintain. So I should also re-explain what I'm doing. So when I am reading for research, I take my notes by hand because I find that helps me more. But what I then do is I then type them up, which is what I'm doing now. Because then I've got a searchable database rather than having to go through like... So bearing in mind my PhD starts in a week. I've got 3 notebooks full of notes already, and that's just from the courses that I did leading up to it in my field, and all of the reading I did for my proposal. And I effectively did my proposal 3 times because I did it initially, then had it reviewed by my supervisor, my at that point proposed supervisor, who is now my supervisor, and some other people at the university. So I then redid it again for submission to the university, and then I did it a 3rd time where I changed some bits quite radically, and that's the version I'm using going into my PhD, and that was for a funding application. because different I also did it twice the first time round because I did a funding application at the same time then, and different places want different information in your PhD proposal. So I did it for my university submission. I did it for my Chase submission, which is a humanities funding body. And that application went in at the same time. Basically, the way Chase works is your university submits a certain number of people each year. So you apply to your university to see if they will put you forward. I wasn't shortlisted for it in the end. But it means that you have to prepare both your university application and your Chase application at the same time. And they want slightly different formats. Often it's not that actually you've written different things, it's that like it might go into a form versus just being in a Word document, that sort of thing. It's the formatting of it that's often generally different. I also know why I'm struggling, which is that my desk is at the wrong height. Oh, that's too low. Where was I up to? There we go. I've written brain, but it looks like drain. My handwriting is so bad. Playing Christmas music. It was lovely, but it was Christmas music. That's not allowed. I think, yeah, my handwriting is super bad, and my handwriting is worse if I'm excited. So I don't know how well this is going to show because the green screen does funny things to it. So you gonna zoom in? No, it's not gonna do it. So basically on these 2 pages, I'll describe it to you. I've got one page where my handwriting is relatively neat. So my handwriting is all in cursive as well, which I understand is weird compared to some countries especially. But also here in the UK, apparently we don't, people don't learn cursive anymore. Or it's not enforced in the way it was for me. So my handwriting is very loopy. And the faster I'm writing, the worse it gets. Yeah, I've never met a doctor with good handwriting. Actually, no, my sister-in-law has nice handwriting. She's a doctor. So it's just because I'm like medical adjacent now. That's definitely why. I should have always known because my handwriting was terrible. You word talk cursive. Okay, so I basically like I had heard that in the US it wasn't as common, but also I know that the education system in the US is not the same everywhere. So I imagine it varies depending on where you are. Where am I up to? So I will also note that the notes that I'm taking are on a book about trauma. It does contain discussion of abuse, but it's it's completely general. I went through earlier and checked my notes to make sure I could type them all up on stream. So they are very generalized, and also some of them you can't see under the ticker right now. But just to be aware and make that known. Also, I can't type apparently. Gosh, have we been live for 40 minutes already? It's flying by today. Oh, that's a really important quote for my... I'm just going to make that bold. I'm going to read it in a second as well because I know you can't see it very well. The quote is, "Trauma is not stored as a narrative with an orderly beginning, middle and end." Which is exactly the thing that I'm studying. Oh, now it's all bold. That's not what I want. Thank you. No, I want to do that. I love both of those emotes as well, they're adorable. Two more pages done. There's like 15 pages for this book. It's going to take, yeah, it's a lot of pages. It's a very, so it's not a massive book, but the text is very dense. It's very small. My camera just doesn't want to show text today. Right, I need to pause for a second because my hands are starting to hurt. And it's probably just because I've been typing so without a break. My hand pain has actually been better. It's been present all weekend, but I've been doing things through it. It's not been like... It's been at a constant level, but it's not been worse for me doing things with it, which is the main difference. I'm still not... like I changed the sheets on the bed yesterday, and lifting the mattress up to put the fitted sheet under was really horrible. So there's certain things. Mostly I find pulling and pushing is hard. Gripping isn't actually as bad. And I think it's the nature, because it's not neuropathic pain. It's not like I'm not losing strength in my hands specifically. Although interestingly, I do lose strength in my legs. So I wonder if it, and I've noticed that I'm sometimes a bit clumsier. So maybe I will get weakness in my hands at some point, or it might have happened and I might not have noticed it just because I'm being very careful when it is happening to stop using my hands as much. So who knows? It could be all manner of things. So I have fibromyalgia, which I found out this year after 10 years of chronic pain. And currently it's, I'm getting a lot of flares right now. And that's partly because it hasn't been managed for a while. It's also because it's exacerbated by stress, and 2020 provided that in great amounts. And 2021 continues to provide more sources of stress. So I was doing a master's degree last year. I had to extend it because of COVID and because of a family death. So I actually finished in November. At the same time of that, I was also working full time. And I quit my job last month so that I could actually stop having flares all the time. But I've only been, that only finished 11 days ago because I worked until the end of December. And I have to say, the job itself was wonderful. It wasn't like, it had stress because every job does, but it wasn't like a horribly stressful job that was causing the problem. It's, I have this problem and this job is making it harder for me to manage it. So I'm still recovering from that. And I think that's why I'm having a lot more flares. But I'm seeing, we have a pain management team at my hospital. And I'm seeing them this week. And by seeing, I mean I'm having a telephone call with them because you don't get to go in now. But the hard thing is that a lot of the stuff that a lot of the stuff that I would do normally to help manage my pain isn't as accessible right now because it requires me to go and see a person. For example, I was seeing an osteopath and that was helping, and having massage therapy helps because a lot of the pain is in my back and my legs. So they're not things that are accessible right now. But yeah, I'm just having to be careful and listen to my body, hence being good and taking a break. I'm doing the thing. I'm gonna drink some water as well. Yeah, so I know there's predispositions for it. There there isn't anyone else in my family with fibro. There are people in my family with chronic fatigue, which is vaguely related. It's not directly related at all. For me, we do think that the fibro was caused by childhood trauma, because that was one of the causes of my mental illness as well. I have genetic predisposition for mental illness too, but it was primarily the result of childhood trauma. So we think that basically at the point that my brain didn't learn how to process emotion properly, it also didn't learn how to process pain properly, and that's why I've ended up with this condition. But yeah, it's been very, very severe for the past 2 years. Am I familiar with CBT? Yes, I've had CBT in the past. It isn't brilliant for me. I know it works really well for a lot of people. It didn't work very well for me. I've had a lot of different kinds of therapy. I see a therapist now, and we're doing mindfulness-based therapy, or sort of therapy inspired by Buddhist teachings, which is something that I looked for specifically, having done a lot of... I'm a really terrible patient because I know too much. I had to take to see my pain management team, I had to do a pain education course, which was really good for like the average service user. But I was just watching it going, are you really using gate control theory? Because gate control theory has been disputed due to its reliance on the Cartesian mind-body split, which has since been... And I was critiquing it too much, and it was really good for most people. But I was just sitting there going, this has taught me nothing that I didn't already know. And that's not their fault at all. It's just because I've literally written a paper on chronic pain and I've done a load of research into it, which is not very much not to say that I know everything about it. I definitely don't. And it was good for me to do. I did do the whole course, and I did listen to it carefully. It took a very holistic approach, which I really appreciated. It talked about the importance of looking at every aspect of your life in order to manage pain. And that was really pleasing. And it explained the limitations of pharmacological interventions and that sort of thing, but also explained what the different... It didn't like go, well, you might get painkillers, but they might not work. It did go into what the different forms of pharmacological intervention are and what things they might work for and what things they might not work for. If you're not familiar, so there's basically 3 different kinds of pain, and painkillers work best on one of those kinds of pain, which is neuropathic pain, which is basically pain involving the nerves. If your pain is one of the other 2 kinds, it doesn't work as well. And for me, my pain is the other 2 kinds, so painkillers don't have as much of an effect on me. Yeah, so Neil, CBT is really good and it works really well for a lot of people. The problem I found is that I've never had a problem logically breaking out of thought spirals. The bit that affects me more with intrusive thoughts is the emotional side of it. And I've had several breakthroughs in therapy over the years, and one of them was learning to feel things, which sounds really ridiculous, but it genuinely was a thing that I became able to do with different emotions at different times. The last one I got was anger, and I'm still very bad at processing anger, because also my therapist doesn't want me to say the word bad because I use it a lot. And I used it there, but I have caught myself. Yeah, one of the I really struggle with anger, especially on my own behalf. Being angry on behalf of other people, that I can do, especially if they're people I care about. But any sort of like self-righteous kind of anger, which has a valid place and is important as a thing to feel, I really struggle with that. And often what will happen is I'll have like all of these sensations and I'll be like, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand what's happening in my body. And it's an emotion that I can't put words to. In fact, somewhere, look, it's the top note. Alexithymia, having no words for your feelings. And I wrote that down because I felt very seen. And good luck with it. I hope it helps. Alan Robert has his own method called the Wonder Method. It's a complete non-cognitive approach. It's entirely based on emotional processing and breathing. Yes, so the book I'm writing up my notes on now talks about that a lot, and so does Healing Without Freud or Prozac. Healing Without Freud or Prozac is amazing. It goes through all of those sort of non-psychiatric, non-pharmacological methods of healing. And it includes things like breathing, which is based on heart rate variability, which is basically the stability of your heart's rhythm and its sync with your breathing and then your limbic system. And the studies that have been done have shown that in people with mental illness, or especially with trauma, their heart rate variability is very variable, which is not what you want. And that by doing things like breathing, including yogic breathing, so doing yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi or that sort of thing, helps bring it back into regulation. And when you bring your heart rate variability into regulation, that then has an effect on the emotional brain, which, as we wrote in our notes up here, is combination of the limbic system and the reptilian brain. It then basically tells them to calm down, effectively. But not only tells them to calm down at the time that you're doing it, it retrains them. And obviously in traumatized people, that can require a lot of retraining. It's a constant retraining. It's not a like you breathe a bit and then you're fixed kind of thing. Also, I hate the term fixed, and I'm already angry at myself for saying that. But yeah, it's super interesting. It's something that I've done a lot of reading about. Where was I up to? Because I think my hands are ready to go again. Oh, you know what I also didn't do is I didn't open my university email. What if a person with trauma trains, sleeps well and has a good training routine to get a good HRV? Isn't it multifactorial? So I'm not saying it can't help. It absolutely can help. And there are examples of, so there is, I've got to remember the name of the treatment. Thank you, Oceanic. It's, what's it called? It's going to be in my notes. It's a really famous therapy for PTSD and I can't remember the name of it. I'm just completely mind blanking. EMDR, there we go. Which is based on eye movements and using eye movement to connect into and effectively re-sync the brain, especially the emotional brain. And it's really interesting, the stuff it can do, because it can have utterly like miraculous effects on people, in the same way that there's loads of case studies in The Body Keeps the Score, which is the book I'm writing up, about people who became yoga instructors and then found that almost all of their symptoms disappeared, and that they were happy and safe and comfortable. So yeah, it's super interesting. But I think it's more like, for most people, multiple forms of treatment are necessary, especially in complex PTSD or chronic mental illness, and you need different things at different times. When I first had treatment, I had psychodynamic psychotherapy, which was really helpful at that point. But then I later had interpersonal therapy. I've then had CBT at points, and lots of different approaches. And I needed all of those things at different times and at different stages of where I was. And having the wrong thing can really not help. Like, if someone tried to give me CBT now, I'd just get frustrated. I suspect. It wasn't detrimental to me at the time, but I don't think it wasn't fully helpful. I think I didn't have the the full capacity to engage with it. I wonder if I'd had it at different points, whether that would have helped. Hey Jay Banks, I'm really good, thank you. I'm having a nice day today. How are you? Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing the notes. I have got a couple of notes in here about childhood sexual abuse. They're not specific. They're about as specific as me saying that sentence, but they will be up on the screen for a bit. So it's only a couple of notes, but if you'd rather avoid that, then please go. I won't be offended at all. I want people to be here as they're able to be, and comfortable to be, and safe to be. So I just wanted to warn you that that's going to come up. I will do my best to make a note in chat and do this and stuff once we're past that point. There's another modality with sounds and healing pertaining to it. I've just started taking steps to alleviate my stresses. Also believe that chaos narrative is not entirely true. Well, it's all right. My PhD is about proving that the chaos narrative is narratable. So for the benefit of other people, chaos narrative is something proposed by Arthur Frank, who basically defines different types of illness narrative. And the standard illness narrative, he calls the restitution narrative, which is the narrative of you have person becomes ill, person gets better, which most illness narratives that you see in media and in like mainstream publishing, that's generally the case, because it's a person who has recovered who is then recapping, memorializing their experience. There is a kind of narrative that Frank proposes called chaos narrative, which is, to give some examples, a person with bipolar disorder in the middle of a manic phase and in the middle of a depressive phase, or a person during a psychotic break, or a person who is having chemotherapy and is having sort of trouble processing the world around them because of the effects of the chemo. That, you know, it's that sort of thing where the person is either dissociated from reality in some way, or there's too much going on and it would be hard to express it, or people who aren't experiencing the passage of time in the normal way. And Frank believes that you can't properly articulate a chaos narrative. I think that that's wrong, and basically the hypothesis for my PhD is it is hard to express a chaos narrative. It's impossible with standard narrative structure. You can't express a chaos narrative in a chronological memoir because it just doesn't work. In order to express a chaos narrative, you need to break free of that normative narrative form that relies on time, linear time, on this sort of like journey style progression, and in even on the length of it, and go to something that looks like it's fragmented, it's episodic, it's a little bit of a moment, it's not relying on temporality. The book I'm reading right now, which is Sunbathing in the Rain by Gwyneth Lewis, which my camera doesn't want to show you, is really interesting because it's a book about depression and it's a memoir, but it's written in really small sections because it's designed to be accessible to people in the grip of depression. She's writing it from that afterwards point, or from a point of remission, but has tried to write it in a way that makes it still accessible. Don't believe why he believes a proper articulation is not possible when it's consistent with many people to totally suppress and sideline the pain momentarily. Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that I think that it's only in chaos narrative that we can properly, authentically show the experience of illnesses that relapse and remit, that aren't constant, that are variable in their effect, because otherwise you don't zoom in enough to see the difference. In a normal memoir, you can express that through like looking in detail at a day that was better and a day that was worse, for example. But I don't know that it does so in as intense and powerful a way. I also think that traditional narrative doesn't do as well at articulating the embodied nature of illness, which is to say what it feels like to have an illness and to experience that illness, especially when it's chronic. Because if I were to like talk a person through my one day, they might think, oh, that doesn't look that bad. But it's in the context of, and all of my days are like that. You know, I don't get a reprieve. I don't get a moment where I'm not in some kind of pain. You have to have that context. But also, there's also a truth in that brief moment, because you have to understand the context of my illness being constant and of me being in pain all the time. But there are also moments where I'm really happy. And you have to zoom in on those moments where I'm happy, because they are as true as the fact that I live constantly with illness. But sometimes the things that you're trying to articulate are at odds with each other. Especially if you're trying to look that like zoomed out or that zoomed in. So I think that's an aspect of chaos narratives as well. The contradiction inherent within especially variable illness. Anyway, that was a tangent. It wasn't really a tangent because it was just me talking about the very crux of my PhD, but it was a tangent from the fact that I need to take some notes that might be a problem for people. So I am going to do that now. And I will note when we're past it. In fact, is it just that one? It is just that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the text color white, and then everything's fine now. It's safe to come back, and I'm going to make a note that's much simpler. We're learning about the best way to do this. Have I read In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts? I haven't. I'm going to look it up. Ooh. There's no... There we go. Oh, that looks super interesting. I have got... I can't remember what it's called now. It's an addiction memoir, and it's really controversial because it was later found that some of the stuff he says isn't true, or it was later... It's really hard to articulate this. It was said that the stuff he'd said wasn't true. And I'm careful to say it that way because obviously truth is a subjective thing for a lot of, in terms of like how things happened. It's often subjective, depending on the context, obviously. If you've got but even when you've got a video of something, it's still what people see and interpret from things. So, I'm trying to remember what it's called. The author was a guest on How to Fail, the podcast. But I've got it downstairs, and it's really interesting thinking about it in that context. Like the context of, is there like the presence of truth when something has been disputed? And is there still like value in the text? And that's really interesting. Yeah, it looks like a really good take on things. Typing sound is coming through, isn't it? Move this up a bit. It might be better. I don't think it was that bad, but... It's so nice to have music that isn't the same lo-fi playlist. What is that arrow doing? Got a giant arrow on this page. Oh, because my notes kind of contradict each other. Okay. Ooh. I think that's also what I was talking about, which is the associating dissociated memories. So giving context to trauma or revisiting trauma in order to like unpack it more is helpful, but it's not like the sole purpose of trauma therapy. I'm astonished I could read that. My handwriting is really bad on this page. What kind of therapy? When I say trauma therapy, I'm using that as an umbrella term to basically mean any kind of treatment for trauma, not a single specific therapy. So anything that's used to treat PTSD. And yeah, this is a really good point as well, that the concept of breathing being really impactful for trauma and mental illness. It's not a new idea. Like it's a really fundamental part of a lot of Asian medicine traditions, especially. It's not new. And it's just not fundamental to Western medicine, which is very much based on different things. Are you looking at efficacy data pertaining to different therapies? So I've done some reading about it, and one of the things that this book does is looks at different studies into different therapies, as does the other things that I've read. I don't know how much. I'll obviously be referencing medical studies in my PhD, but I'm not currently planning to do any studies or to be really in-depth looking at. Basically, in my PhD, where I'm looking at forms of therapy, will be in relation to how those therapies reflect my theories about narrative and non-normative narrative. So, for example, considering how things like the stuff I've just taken notes on, like the reassimilation of traumatic memory, and the reprocessing of it, and how that relates to like narrative continuity, and like how do you narrate a flashback when it is both past and present, and that sort of thing. So things like, one of the very first notes I took from this book was a study of fMRI scans of people whilst they were having flashbacks, and the part of the brain that it illuminated was the part that like processes new things. So effectively every time that those people were having flashbacks, they were experiencing that traumatic event for the first time, neurologically, which is really interesting. So I think I'll be using it supportively, but not like as a direct thing. So yes and no, I guess, is the answer to that. Apologies for the horrible noises that my water bottle makes, by the way. I just corrected my typing to the American spelling. I need to see if I can tell Zetiro that I'm writing in British English, because it keeps whining at me for my spelling. References. It has me in English UK. Oh, no, I don't want to put myself into Spanish. Is it anywhere else? No. That's weird. Because it wants... It thinks I've spelled traumatized wrong. Haven't finished that one. Oh, no. Done another 2 pages. How many pages are there left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't get it done today. And what I might do then, because I kind of want... It's really hard. As much as I don't want to hold myself to a schedule, I also want to get an idea of how much I can do. But basically, I was lying awake last night worrying, and I know that's not going to be shocking. I was lying awake last night worrying about my ability to do my PhD, and because a PhD is meant to be full-time, like you're meant to be working for 40 hours a week, and right now I'm not managing that. I'm managing like half that. But the thing is, those 40 hours a week, for most people don't work 40 hours a week. Like they might be at their desk for 40 hours a week, but they spend a bunch of that time doing other things. Whereas when I sit down, the time I'm thinking of in terms of I have sat down to study tends to be actual active study time. Obviously it's a bit different when I'm streaming because I pause to talk about things. But when I pause to talk about things, it's talking about things related to my research. So it's weird because I don't know how to measure it really. Or if I need to, like, I don't think I'm going to have an idea until I've got deadlines, whether I'm meeting things. Because I have nothing to measure it by other than the number of hours. Also, I'm aware that my chair is flickering. I'll sort that in a second. It's gonna go real weird for a moment. Oh no, I need it less, not more. There we go, that's better. Yeah, so it's a thing that I'm worrying about, but I don't think the answer is to just be like, now I will do everything. Because moderation. I can also write a book someday. I've written a book. It's called Mundane Magic. You can find it on my website. I've written 2 books actually. They're both self-published. Mundane Magic is a low fantasy novel about a woman with anxiety who finds that she has a magical power that can save everyone. But that it's really bad at summarising my novel. My other book is called How to Forgive Yourself in 15 Years. And it's a poetry collection about my experience of mental illness, which in my case is primarily anxiety and depression. And this is really cheerful music to be talking about that. It's lovely. But yeah, I am also working on another novel, which I've been working on for about 4 years? 5 years? Something like that. And I want to rewrite it next. Or like it has some structural problems. So I'm using a lot of the text that I've written. I've written about 80,000 words. And I'll be using a lot of that text, but rejigging it and adjusting some things because I want it to be, it's historical fantasy, but I want it to be slightly less historical. I want it to be historical fantasy in the generic term, like you can see it's generically Napoleonic era rather than directly referencing Napoleon. And for a whole number of reasons, which I won't go into here because I'll be talking forever. Wow, the captions had fun with Napoleonic. It got it that time. It said something about the Purple Legions the first time. Okay, let's keep going. 5 pages left in this book, and then we can consider this task done. And I've got my notes on 1 article, and then that's all of this notebook done. hands are getting cold. Somewhere in here, a pair of gloves. I love captions. Apparently the panda's getting cold. If you're using the captions, I swear I'm not as weird as they imply. Okay, I am. That's the first time I've yawned today. It must be a record. We're like an hour and a half into the stream. Could I talk on REM sleep and trauma? I can find the reference and I can tell you more of what he says. I don't recall that off the top of my head. I know that I found it interesting because I wrote a note on it. Oh, cool. I'll read you this bit. PTSD is notoriously associated with disturbed sleep, and self-medication with alcohol or drugs further disrupts REM sleep. During my time at the VA, my colleagues and I had found that the veterans with PTSD frequently woke themselves up soon after going into REM sleep, probably because they had activated a trauma fragment during a dream. Other researchers have also noticed this phenomenon but thought that it was irrelevant to understanding PTSD. Today we know that both deep sleep and REM sleep play important roles in how memories change over time. The sleeping brain reshapes memory by increasing the imprint of emotionally relevant information while helping irrelevant information fade away. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Perhaps most relevant to EMDR, which is the therapy I was talking about earlier, that's really good for trauma. In REM sleep, we activate more distant associations than in either non-REM sleep or the normal waking state. For example, when subjects are wakened from non-REM sleep and given a word association test, they give standard responses: hot, cold, hard, soft, etc. Wakened from REM sleep, they make less conventional connections, such as thief, wrong. They also solve simple anagrams more easily after REM sleep. The shift towards activation of distant associations could explain why dreams are so bizarre. That last bit's a little bit less relevant, but is interesting. Yeah, so basically it's to do with what your brain is processing in REM sleep. And EMDR is kind of linked to that because I think the idea is that it kind of stimulates it. He references an article a bit before that in the journal Dreaming that points out that the movement your eyes do in REM is the same as what you effectively mimic it in EMDR. And also there's a link between levels of REM sleep and depression, and that the less REM sleep you get, not the more depressed you are, but there's a correlation between reduced REM sleep and depression. So yeah, there you go. What on earth does my handwriting say? It could say neutral. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm going to leave the word off. I don't know what it is. 3 pages left. Interesting. How do they gauge it's PTSD and not just trauma? Do you know any good sources that provide a good comprehension on the subject? Honestly, this book is what I would recommend, because all of that paragraph and a bit I just read you, he had references for all of it. So it's, I'll write it in here for you so you've got it. So again, the one thing I would say, you may have heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it every time I recommend this book. He does give explicit description of trauma, including childhood trauma. It's not gratuitous, but I know for many people who've been recommended the book have then found it triggering, and haven't been able to continue reading. So do just be careful whether that's with reading it yourself or with recommending it to other people, because I think it's important to, I think that making sure that people are aware of things like that makes books more accessible. If we were able to say this book contains this kind of discussion, and make that a thing that we did generally, it's not so much that it makes, like, this book may not be accessible for many people because of the triggering nature of the content, but there are other books that might be okay. I think, and this is only from my memory, Healing Without Freud or Prozac was a bit gentler in its case studies. So it's possible that that one might be more accessible, but people won't know that unless we normalise giving some warnings about things. They'll just avoid everything because of the risk of it. I don't think I explained that very well, but what is going on with my microphone? Why is it picking up everything again? Just adjusting the levels, seeing if that helps. Is there cognitive decline amongst people with chronic depression? I don't know. So the difficulty with looking at anything like that. Let me just finish writing this one note. So the difficulty with anything like that is you are relying on the definition of chronic depression. And certainly in Western research, the standard definition of chronic depression ticks the boxes in the DSM for chronic depression. And due to the nature of the DSM, and I will make it clear that I take an anti-DSM stance, which I believe to be correct, but take it with a pinch of salt as a view based on that. The nature of DSM categorization means that comorbidities are incredibly common. You very, very rarely get a person with a diagnosed mental illness that ticks boxes on the DSM in such a way that they definitely have this one illness and could never be considered to have any others. Because of that weakness, there's a very high crossover, which means that you can't look at people with chronic depression in isolation, because realistically, you're looking at people with chronic depression, a large majority of whom also have chronic anxiety or other things. So it would be really hard to say that anything, be that cognitive decline or anything else, is common amongst people with one illness. And it's one of the reasons that the DSM's pervasiveness and the pervasiveness of categorization of mental illness is such a problem. And the reliance on diagnosis and the availability of treatment based on your diagnosis, especially in the US, where your insurance is then based on what diagnosis you have, and getting the correct diagnosis is really vital. That's why the DSM is such a problem, because it affects all those other things. It underlies all of the research that we do. And it makes you question to what extent we can trust the research that we do and have done. Which I don't think means that all the research that has ever been done into mental health is bullshit. I should stress that. I just mean that when you're looking at it, you have to take that into account. In the same way that you have to take into account the age of your sample and your sample size and that sort of thing. Because, if you looked at people in their 80s with chronic depression, I imagine you'd find quite a lot of cognitive decline because they're in their 80s. Whereas if you look at 16-year-olds, you're going to find a very different thing. So yeah, that's not, it's kind of an I don't know, but with a caveat, I guess. Where was I up to? And thank you for the questions as well, because one of the things that I struggle with, which I think a lot of people struggle with, is answering questions with I don't know, and the nature of being in research. Oh, that's my medication alarm. It's all right, I'll snooze that for a bit. It's not medication I have to take at a set time, so don't worry. I really struggle saying I don't know, and I don't know is a really common answer the moment you get into research, because the whole point of it is that you find things that you don't know and then you go and find out what they are. But also that you accept that you might not find what they are. You might not get an answer, and that's it's something I'm trying to become more comfortable with, is being wrong. And I'm not yet. But the more I do it, the better I get at it. Not that I've never been wrong before. But yeah, it's getting used to, I think especially being wrong live on the internet has a very different context to it. And it's really good practice. It's really good practice. Between this and like the reading groups that I go to and all the sort of discussions and seminars I'm in and stuff like that, and the ability to assimilate other people's ideas really depends on my ability to understand that I don't know everything. Really well put, thank you. You might know Dr. K, who streams on here. He was alluding that there was a decline associated with it. He gets a lot of questions, so he just responded with a binary yes and moved on. I mean, there may well be studies that show it. I would just question / be really interested in how they've accounted for the comorbidities and complexities of mental illness in that, especially with anxiety, because the thing that depression is most commonly comorbid with is anxiety, and that is entirely because they share so many symptoms in the DSM. So this is the last note in this book. There we go. I've done it. I'm going to move it into done in my work list. Amazing. Which means I've just got, and this is probably what I will do, because this is only 2.5 pages, so I will do this article notes, and then we might chat for a bit, and then I'll stop. And I'll have a lunch break, and then maybe come back and do some reading. I'd like to read some more of Sunbathing in the Rain. I haven't been taking, I sort of stopped partly because I haven't been taking notes on it thus far, and I'm, how far in am I? Further in than I thought I was. I'm like 60 pages in, but because I realised that it was going to become one of my primary sources, I went, oh, I should probably stop and take notes on this, because I was originally just reading it for enjoyment. Yeah, so we're going to add a journal article. It's a long title. But to be fair, it's not as long as some some article titles. And this is in the volume 46. Doesn't have an issue number. Date 2020. Pages 525 to 531. Thank you, past me. You actually put all of this information in the notes. Something of a miracle. Oh. There we go. It really is. So this is Epidemic Sound, which I've got on a trial with, and I honestly think I'm just going to keep because it's just been so lovely. Good morning, Dan. I'm doing really good this morning. How are you? Did you have nightmares about poison chickens? Back in the office and no chicken nightmares. That's miraculous. No, it just doesn't like the word therapeutic. The first level on that game was 1000% scarier than the farm level. So I hate the horror genre. I can't watch horror films. I don't play horror games, with a couple of exceptions where they're like I've played The Last of Us, which you can consider horror, but it's kind of not at the same time. But I can watch people play them. So, and if you are not aware, this is my friend Dan, and he's a streamer. Go follow him. Yeah, Last of Us is like action RPG. It's just that it has zombies and jump scares sometimes. I still haven't finished the second game. Controllers are very hard on my hands. I'm just not very good with a controller, so I get frustrated with it because I grew up PC gaming. We did have an Xbox, but it wasn't like my primary gaming platform. And I'm just not used to it. My hands just don't work as well as then not working as well. What are I up to? Oh yeah. I much prefer PC as well. My fingers get tired too easy now on keyboard, and I think I need a proper ergo one. So something I found, so I've got a Corsair mechanical keyboard in here, which requires a lot of action from your hands. When I then am typing on my laptop, which obviously has a flat laptop keyboard, I find that a lot easier because I'm not having to put in as much effort in order to action the keys. So I'm thinking of getting a second, because I really like this keyboard. It feels lovely to use, but it can just be tiring to use. So I might get a shitty flat keyboard that I can then use if my hands are tired, or I can just use my laptop, to be honest. Advanced reasoning processes. And again, this is one of those articles that's in columns. So if you see me writing things like mid, left, top, right, whatever that might be, it's me directing myself to where on the page the information is. Thank you. A chiclet keyboard? I've not heard of that. I'm gonna look it up. Oh yeah, that is exactly the kind of keyboard I'm describing. Yeah. And it's really not so much needing that constantly, but just having it as an option to change to. I'm nearly done with this article's notes. Then I'll have done all of this notebook. It won't be all of the notes. There's still a whole other notebook. But this is everything I needed to get done before next Monday. So that's a great way to start the week. Oh. If you take nothing away from this, let it be that other people make just as many typos whilst typing as you do. Last page. I'm rushing as well to get to the end of it. I can feel myself doing that. I've been so good today. I think it's definitely an element of my brain feels like, also I don't know why my nose is running so much today. My brain feels like this isn't real work, which is bullshit because it is. Okay, Neil, take care and let me know what you think of the book because I think it's amazing and I've been cautiously recommending it to a lot of people. So it's heavy and it's dense. It will take you a while. Last note. I've written this weirdly. I've written can be partly be mitigated, but I think only one of those should be there. Awesome. Take care. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I did it. Oh, I'm gonna move it into the done section. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Yay. Oh, that was brilliant. And we've been live 2 hours. I did a whole 2 hours. I'm doing really well today. Right. So I think we will, however, quit while we're ahead / make sure I actually take a break. So I think my plan, yeah, exactly. Little wins make big wins. My plan for the rest of today is I'm going to take a lunch break. There might be some mining that occurs during my lunch break. I had very bad luck finding diamond. over the weekend. So I'm determined to actually find some diamond. Yeah, so I'm going to take a break. I'm going to have some lunch. I'm going to play some Minecraft. And then I think this afternoon I'm going to potentially try and finish this book, actually, because it's quite a fast reading book. But I'll try and do another couple of hours and see if I can do that 4 hours in one day. Whenever that ends up being, like, I'll take as long a break as I need to, and then read for as long as I can, but aim to try and get to and make sure I stop at 4 hours. Because I think that's important as well, to make sure that I don't do too much. Sorry for the horrible water drinking noises. I should just start moving my microphone away when I do that. But yeah, so thank you all so much for being here. I will see you again tomorrow. You will notice that I've taken the schedule away. The schedule just says I'll kind of be here each afternoon. Obviously, I started at 10 a.m. today, but don't expect every day to be like this. I think the way I'm going to do it is I will be here once every weekday at some point. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. The link is in the About panels, and you'll see when I go live. But yeah, I will see you all again tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And it's only a week until my PhD starts. Yay! Maybe this week I'll actually get some information about it. But yeah, take care all of you, and I will see you all soon. Have a lovely day.